Hi, I'm Carole Baskin, founder and CEO of Big Cat Rescue. Today is Cat Chat 37 with Julie Bindas.
All right, can you say and spell your name?
Hi, my name is Julie Bindas, B-I-N-D-A-S. I'm here with Carole at the Big Cat Rescue in Tampa, Florida. And I've had a lot of experience working with wildlife. Basically, I spent 15 years in the jungles of Costa Rica where I ran a rescue release center. I'm also a holistic veterinarian, meaning we work with medicinal herbal formulas, and we also work in stem cells. Stem cell collection and also stem cell therapy is a new frontier which is helping animals all over the world. We've done different types of things with horses, for instance with the Sheikh of Dubai, and also I work with Bob Harmon from Vet Stems in California, who initiated the program and is one of the foremost authorities on stem cells with animals.
So tell me about how caging is done in Costa Rica, because we had been thinking about moving down there but couldn't find the right kind of caging material or food source.
Well, for both of those questions, Costa Rica is quite simple. Basically, we have many native bamboo. And what we did in one rescue center, Juan Jose Rojas runs this amazing animal center down in Costa Rica. He's a wonderful man. And he created with bamboo. There's a type of bamboo that it is so thick and it is so strong. And it weathers well. Costa Rica, of course, has the same climate it more or less as Florida does, only with more rain. And what he was able to do is just simply by using the bamboo, which is easily attainable, it's very cost effective. And it can go around, and an animal also will not hurt its teeth with the bigger cats if they try to break out. Juan Jose Rojas is he's the only successful man that's ever bred tapirs in captivity, because he has a very neat idea going on. And we had Discovery Channel come down and film one of the births of the tapirs, which was pretty amazing. And one of the things we were able also to see, there's a frog. It's a golden frog. It's very sacred, and it's been extinct, they say, for over 25, 50 years almost. On the back rump of the tapir while she was birthing, there is a little golden frog on her.
Oh my goodness.
So it was pretty amazing to know that, okay, there was still one. But most of the habitats in Costa Rica are all natural. And as for a food source, there's an animal, it's about twice the size of a guinea pig. It's called a quilla. And these animals have amazing nutritious proteins in their bodies. They're about this big, and all the wild cats love them, and they're very easy to breed. So what we started was the breeding of the live animals that we feed to our animals, so that we're not constantly going and looking for food. And because we do work with releasing as many of the animals as we can, as soon as we can, we don't feed them cow or chicken, simply because when they are released, we don't want that taste or that memory to be back in them, so that they don't go and attack livestock or go into private property. So the wild rabbits, there's also wild rabbits in Costa Rica. We caught a bunch of them. They breed just like just like rabbits, so we have a constant feed of them, and the quillas. And that is the basic staple of what the animals would be eating anyway. A couple of other things here and there. The tepescuenti is also an animal, beautiful animal, that the jaguar really loves, but they're highly endangered. So we don't breed them to feed them to the cats. You have to go find them themselves. But
tell me more about the work that you did when you were in Costa Rica.
I ran a rescue release center where, unfortunately, like the problems that we have in the United States, a lot of people want to own a wild animal. They don't realize that it's not to be a house pet, and like most people, after it gets out of its little cute baby stage, they don't know what to do with it. Its wild instinct turns in. It wants to run, it wants to play, it wants to be a wild animal. People look at this as a type of aggressive, oh, my cat is getting more meaner or so forth. It's not. It's just if you have a child at home that's always in the house, it has pent up energy and it needs to release it. And that's what these animals need to do. So unfortunately, I would get lots of these animals, and we would just work on rehabilitating them and releasing them back into the wilds. And believe it or not, even though animals that have been raised from birth in captivity, they can be returned back to the wild. We've proven it time and time again. It does take work and dedication, but the animals have a memory sense, and they are connected with Mother Earth. And it seems that the minute we take them out into the jungle and their paws touch the ground, they're receiving a message that we can't. We can't see that they're receiving, but they get it. They get it. They get what they have to be doing. And I've written a book. It's called Thy Kingdom Come. It's available on Amazon.com. And it is the true life story of me finding a puma cub and raising her in the jungles. For 6 years I stayed with her and the indigenous people in a beautiful area called International Parque Amistad, which is also a World Heritage Site. And this is where it's not like I taught her anything. She more or less taught me everything. She showed me the jungle through her eyes, and it was an incredible experience. I also had an incredible experience working with the indigenous people there. God didn't make any mistakes when He created every single plant, herb, weed that there is. And I've witnessed, I'll give you an example. There was a jaguar who had just given birth. She was not doing well. And they're usually very sharp. For me to be able to witness this and her not spot me was immediately telling me something was really wrong with her. Because normally they have the ability to, they'll spot you before you even see them. And she was by a riverbed. And there's a mud bank. But there's a certain level, I think if you go down about 4 or 5 inches into the mud bank, where you will see a simple blue thin line. And it is this line that she began to just dig and dig into, and she completely covered herself with this mud. It was astonishing. It was like a blue-green highlighting her coat, and she just was inside this mud. She just stayed there for about 20 minutes. Afterwards, she got up, she shook herself off, and as she was shaking, she caught me. She saw where I was, and then in one powerful leap, she was gone. But it's amazing because then I went and I work with a lot of healing muds, and that is one of the strongest detoxifiers in the world, this one thin little blue line. I've also seen them eat green plants. We know that wild cats are carnivores. However, I have seen them pick a plant to eat. So it was the indigenous that sat me down, and for 6 years I studied with them all the different medicinal plants, and this is the basis behind my natural remedy line. And like people, we are all looking for a more natural means of healing ourselves. We're finding that the pros and cons, the cons outweigh the pros in most of our medicine. You can only imagine the same goes for the captive animals. We're finding that all the warming medicine, for instance, no matter how good it is, warming medicine should never be given once a month. It simply means if it's being given once a month, it's not doing its job. It's just getting rid of the eggs. It's not getting rid of the hose. A proper warm medicine should only be given twice a year. And it is for at least a 6-week term. And there are certain plants, and each animal, depending on the area that it comes from, they'll have a certain plant from their country that will heal them beautifully. And this is the basis of a lot of my research that I'm doing. I'm also working in stem cell collection. I work with Bob Harmon. He owns Vet Stems, which is located in California, and he does amazing work with stem cells. We can repair bones, do spinal cord damage, and basically give animals a completely better, painless life with minimal evasion. And it's as natural as you can get because we're using the same stem cells of the animal themselves.
Can you give an example like you did earlier of the horse?
We had a horse that had broken its leg. It was a racing stallion, an Arabian. And what we did is we had taken some of the fat cell mesenchymal cells that were located inside the animal. In your fat cells, you have a wealth of stem cells growing. We don't even realize, even in our own adult bodies, we have this. And what we did is we just re-injected it into the break, and that healed within 3 to 6 weeks perfectly. And within 8 weeks after that, it ran the European Cup, and it won, hands down. So there was our living proof that this did work. you can go to the site vetstems.com and see all the testimonies and all the wonderful work that is showing that stem cells is now something that we need to address. Has to keep most of our captive animals, unfortunately, because of their lack of exercise. They'll have a lot of bone problems. Being declawed debilitates the paw. The paw is no longer hitting the ground right. They're not able to scratch trees and so forth to build up those tiny little ligaments and muscles that run through it. And this is where you will see arthritis and muscles just become atrophied. So again, this is where a stem cell injection, where it's, like I said, it's very minimal evasion. The animal has no downtime at all. As soon as it wakes up from the anesthesia, the animal is fine. And it helps you. The stem cell growth then begins to grow, and all healthy new cells are replacing the ones that are either damaged, aged, or diseased. So this is a great frontier that we're working very diligently on to bring to not only cat centers but even domestic animals.
How wonderful is that?
Yeah. Through my life, I've been able to work with amazing shamans, one from Sri Lanka, one from Yemen, one from Costa Rica. And one of the things that they were able to tell me, which was really interesting, was the ability to heal with sound. At the time, they were doing a lot of like whether it was their songs or whether it was chords being hit. I remember this one gentleman was saying that all of his patients, as soon as they would come in, he would make them say the scale. And as soon as you sing the scale, there is always a note that you will not be able to hit, as well as you might hit the other notes. And it is that vibrational frequency that sound is on that is what is blocking it, is the imbalance in your body. So rather than treating like most doctors would, saying, okay, this is what's wrong with the person, let's heal them, they were using a different way, again, a non-invasive way. What we found out from our study with animals is the sound of the wolf and the sound of the whales. They are the two most healing sounds on this planet. And this has been scientifically proven that whales, with their sonar, actually speak to all the other whales throughout the world. Once their sonar goes out, it's like a vibrational frequency that goes through the waters, excuse me, and actually penetrates to every other whale. Every other whale picks up the sonar that is going off. It's like a radar going off between them. Unfortunately, because of all of our nuclear things going off, and anything like that is stopping the oceans from their communication, this is what's kind of cut man off. We're putting too many things in, and no longer the sounds in the morning of birds. That in itself, why do we wake up and we feel so good when we hear a bird singing? It's simply because it's healing us. We don't feel it, so to speak, as we would if we take an aspirin to heal a headache. But it is healing us. It's going through a metaphysical level. It's going through layers of us that can't be obtained. And the wolves also, when they do their howling, and we say they're howling at the moon, they're lonely, whatever, they're actually sending off a vibrational frequency to do as much as they can to bridge the gap between humans and animals. There's such a huge gap that has occurred over hundreds and hundreds of years, and what we look at them as and what they really are is a huge difference. And they're the ones that are in captivity that cannot be released for many different reasons. There's a lot of captive animals that can't be released in the wilds. They really have a purpose. I really feel that those are the types of animals that we as humans, because we have to take care of them, need to get very close to, because they will have a message for us. And yes, there is interspecies communication, and I do work in interspecies communication. And there are some gifted people in this world that do tremendous things, that can sit down with an animal and hear everything they have to say. And we have this ability. The indigenous people that I was with, for instance, when I first came into their village, their children were sitting around. And I made a comment after a half hour, your children are so quiet, they don't talk. If you had a bunch of American kids, for instance, in a circle for a half hour, you'd have chatter going left and right. And it was the leader of the tribe that came over to me and he says, they are talking. And he says, they're talking a mile a minute. And I said, excuse me? And he says, we teach our children from birth to speak with their minds. I know it's real important, he says, for your people to say mommy, say daddy, you're constantly telling them. But he says, the connection, the part of the brain that is being used when they're just newborns is yet another field we're not even aware of. They're talking with their minds. And to talk with your minds, it's like sending pictures. But there's a lot of animals that also you have to respect and you ask their permission first. It's not a trick, it's not something that comes to you right away. You sit with them, you allow them to get to know you, to see you, and they see the inside of you. They read our auras. An animal can tell instantly when you come right next to it everything about you without you having to say a word. They're reading you. And you actually ask permission. It's just like cats don't like you when you're first meeting them to look them directly in the eye. You're kind of being aggressive in that. You put your eyes down and you kind of just let them feel you. And if they want to communicate with you, they'll begin communicating. And it'll be a series of photos. Lack of a better way to explain it. It's pictures that they'll start sending you of what they're thinking or what's bothering them. I know a lot of my work when I'm doing holistic medicine with animals, I find that most of the time what's affecting them starts from an emotional background. And once you clear the emotional field, you'll see the physical field, what the outcome of their emotions. It's just like humans. When we're highly stressed, our liver goes out of our sockets, we don't sleep well, we don't eat well, or we overeat, or we smoke, or we have a drink or something. We're trying to make a balance. The animals are the same way. Unfortunately, they don't do what we do. They can't escape what they're feeling. So it starts to come out in their body. You'll see physical differences, illnesses, hair loss, nervous habits like pulling their hair out. I know a lot of captive cats in the beginning, they'll just, for some reason, they completely take all the hair off their tails. So what I work on is their emotional level. It's very important for me to learn the minds of animals. There's an incredible book written called When Elephants Weep by Jeffrey Mousson Mason. It's an amazing book. If you are wanting to know about the minds of animals, it's a great way to start. It's a very in-depth book. But for instance, right now I'm standing in this leopard that is across from me. She is listening to everything I'm saying, and she's feeling so peaceful about it, where she was staring straight at me. It's not like, some people say it's the tone of my voice is very soothing. Animals immediately get very calm after they hear me talking for about 20 minutes.
It's funny because as soon as I walked up and asked you your name and you said it, I was like, oh, I like her voice.
And you know what's weird? I think, again, it's a level that my voice will reach. I talk in very different tones all the different times, depending if I'm talking to my daughter, if I'm talking to people, if I'm obviously yelling at a car that's pulled out in front of me. But as soon as I get with animals, they also bring me to a certain vibrational frequency. And it's that one that they'll be able to accept. And I've been able to calm the most ferocious animals simply by talking, singing. They actually love to be sang to. I'm a classic pianist. And as you'll read in my book, one time I put there was a gentleman that came with a sailboat to Costa Rica, and he was an eccentric, and he had a beautiful piano on his sailboat. We took it out just when whales do a lot of migration throughout Costa Rica. They come down from all over. We have all the different types of whales come, and they breed, they have their babies, and then they begin their journey back up north. And I began playing this one song. It was Chopin. And I just kept playing it and playing it. And it was amazing how two whales started following the sailboat and were mimicking. I would just hit the chord once. They would mimic the chord back to me. So animals do have, there's many different factors. All the different things that stimulate us as humans, think of them being even more so stimulated because all their senses are that much keener, that much stronger. So what I like to do when someone says, okay, something is wrong with my animal, not just the physical, the testing of the blood and this, and okay, is this wrong with it? You have to address it on a different level and look at what is it going through. They have bad days just like we do. They have dreams and aspirations. They want to be doing things. They feel love. And again, I go back to, if we do have to keep animals captive, then it's really important that we become one-on-one on them. Really get to be with them. There's another thing that happened to me that just makes me bring this up. It's just coming so clearly. Whether Kaiser is telling me to do this, we have a zoo in Costa Rica that I'm not proud of. I'm glad that it's being closed. It's been cited. Blah, blah, blah. I won't go into the horrifying details with you, but there was a tiger that was constantly in captivity in a very small cage. He was dying. They called me as a last resort because the veterinarians always think you're a witch doctor when you work with herbs. So I came out and he was dehydrated. They said he's going to die because he won't drink water. And we have coconut trees in Costa Rica. They call it agua de pipa, the water of pipa. They consider it the water of the gods because it's the only water in the world that doesn't hit the ground. And for some reason, I just knew that, and it's full of electrolytes. So I know this sounds crazy, but I told one of the workers, get me down a couple of pipas. And the owner of the zoo said, why are you giving a cat pipa? I said, either you want me to be here or you don't. So either we do it my way or, okay. She says, Julie, go ahead. So I bring down the pipas and I open them up. You have to crack them open. They're very hard. It's an immature coconut and it's a water before it turns into milk, the water of a pipa. It's a very sweet water. Unlike what you buy here, they do sell coconut water, but I have yet to, and I've tried every brand, I've yet to taste one that tastes like what it tastes from a tree. So I poured it into his bowl and I shoved it in. Not only did he drink one, he ended up drinking 3 full coconuts, and they're full of a lot of water. And I had given an animal communication course about a month before that, and one of the girls who was one of my students, this just goes to show how people, your best ability of showing you how you are at how well you are doing at your work is when one of your students actually surpasses you. This is a woman who her husband was the veterinarian at the zoo. And after it started getting dark, she turned around to me. Her name was Katia. And she says, Julie, I'll take the night shifts with Kaiser. Kaiser was the name of the tiger. And they wanted to move him into they had him in a little cage in case things should go wrong. He was even in a smaller cage at this point. He couldn't get up. He was just laying down. And she wanted to touch him. She said, Julie, I just wanted to touch him. And this is a huge animal. He's never been touched. And, everyone in the zoo said, you are not allowed to touch him. You're not allowed to do anything. And she waited until all of a sudden they all get called into the office for some reason. And she says, oh, I'll sit here. And sure enough, she put her hand through the cage. And she begins to pet him. Now, I realize that this is not something that we should do.
Do this at home.
And don't do this at home, please. But it was a beautiful experience because he began to communicate with her. And what he told her is, I have never been touched. Please, in my last hours, just touch me. And she was given the ability to actually go into the cage because he was being sedated, and just before the sedation put through, he actually, for the first time in 2 days, completely got up on all fours, walked over to her. They got very afraid. They were getting ready to put another injection in him to stop him, and she asked him, please don't. He just wants to be touched. And he completely allowed her to touch his entire body. And she just kept petting him. And he just told her, thank you. He says, that meant everything to me. And he did pass away. And so that's a magical story. And we have to know that, unfortunately, a lot of the animals that come, for instance, here to Big Cat Rescue are coming to a more heavenly place. They've all been abused in some way or the other. So that in itself is a danger. So I don't suggest that you go in and put your hand in to a cat cage. But what I'm saying is these animals can be changed. They can change from whatever devastating thing has happened to them and begin to tell us something. because they know the connection, they have the connection with Mother Earth that we've lost. And they're trying to put that back together because there's a real reason for it. Our Earth is getting ready to do an amazing shift. And it's a shift in consciousness where we're going to awaken. We use such a tiny part of our brain. And the indigenous people say it's the part we're not using that we need to open up. And it will tell us the answers to everything. We need not look further than our own minds, our own little voice. And this is what the animals constantly instill in me. So when I'm working on an animal that is sick, I look into all the different reasons. But a lot of it comes from just what they communicate with me, just what I could see through them.
What was your first aha moment where you realized that you were getting information that wasn't obvious from an animal?
It was a little margay, and I had been practicing my communication, but I still wasn't receiving anything back. I was putting a message out, but I wasn't receiving anything back. Some people have a very easy way to meditate. They can fall into meditation very easily. They breathe. They'll meditate. I'm not one of these kind of people. I'm constantly moving, and for me to sit still for any great length of time, it's like Julia Roberts in Eat, Love, and Pray when she's sitting there meditating and she looks at the clock and she puts her head down and says, oh my God, not even a minute has gone by, and her mind has wandered. I'm very similar to that. It says quiet the noisy mind. My mind is constantly racing. And so I wasn't concentrating. I was just moving this little animal from one section to another. She was just brought to me. And I was just realizing as soon as possible she could be released. She was ready. We just needed to find the proper place to release her. And all of a sudden, she just started communicating so quickly with me, sending me so many pictures, images of exactly where she wanted to be. And it took me by surprise. I remember I was
because
squatting.
You knew this wasn't coming from your
right,
head.
and I remember squatting. I'm squatting doing something when the communication occurred, and when it hit me, I completely fell back on my rump, just like, oh my gosh. Like I guess until it really happens to you, we're such disbelievers. We tend to, we need proof. I need proof that this is really working. But there's also been quite a few times when I have wanted to communicate. I've done all the proper ways, and it hasn't occurred. So not only is it a gift, but I think there's a moment where animals aren't used to us communicating with them. So when we do sit down and do it to them, they're kind of shocked. And then there are some animals that just don't want to. They're so hurt by people, they want nothing to do with us. And this is also understandable. If you could just picture living in a cage your whole life, this is what it would be like. So basically, it is real important to be in tune with them. People that have domestic animals, everybody understands their dog. Everybody understands their cats. You're communicating. You don't realize it. And it's funny, when I do communicate with domestic animals, they tell us things that basically they become the human. They say dogs are just like their owners. It's almost 90% true. They're almost identical to their owners, even in what they'll talk about. They'll talk about whatever their owners are about. Where when you sit down with a wild animal, even if it's a captive wild animal, they tell you things that are different. They bring you to a light, a light inside of you that you didn't even know you had, and you begin to believe in yourself. They give us back something that we lost, and science has to have it proven. And they say we really don't believe in magic, but what is magic but just science that's not discovered? So I try to bridge both of them. I look at all the magical things and try to scientifically bridge it, because I know that this world isn't going to accept something unless you have some kind of proof. So even in like working with my animal herbal remedies, each one of the herbs that are in my remedies is proven clinically and scientifically to do a certain thing, to be able to alleviate a certain thing. And it is the blending of them done by master herbologists and shamans that create not only a source of nutrition. Herbs are you give them a very small amount, but an herb has such a concentrated amount of nutrition in it that most animals, when they are sick, they are not hungry. So their nutrition is going down. So not only are you giving them something that is curing them, but simultaneously you are giving them something that is giving them a certain nutritional value during their state of debilitation. And it works gently, safely, and naturally. I had a little indigenous man tell me one time, it's pretty easy. He says, you have two choices in life, God's medicine or man's. Which do you choose? So I says, well, it'd be nice to blend them both. And that's basically, there are a lot of wonderful veterinarians that do wonderful work. So what I'd like to do is to just piggyback with them and add some interesting ways to further help something, make an animal come back a little quicker.
You said something earlier that I thought was important, that people come from all around the world to Big Cat Rescue, and one of the things that I'm often surprised about is they'll come here because they've lost a loved one, and they say, I just want a place where it's quiet and I can kind of reflect over what that connection was. And invariably, they will leave here saying, I looked into the eyes of the tiger, the ocelot, the leopard, whoever it was, somebody caught their attention, and they say, and I saw God. Yeah. And I think it's so amazing that when people are at their lowest, animals will often bridge that gap and reach out to you.
They do. They're like the rainbow bridge you hear that connects us with whatever God we believe in, whatever spirit we believe in. Animal spirits are constantly walking with us. We don't realize that. We're surrounded. We're never alone. And they're very healing. We had a group of autistic children come down to Costa Rica. They went out. There is a place called the Osa Peninsula, and there's a woman there who has a Divine Dolphin Healing Center. And she does wild dolphin swims. And the autistic children were actually put in the water with the dolphins. And of course, each one of the children had a caretaker with them that was right there with them, making sure they were okay. Plus, there was several lifeguards. There was a whole group of people that went out to make sure all these kids were all right, but to give them this little experience with the dolphins. And what amazed me and brought me to tears, the dolphins didn't go over to anybody but the children that needed them. They went right over to the children, and again, they started to make a sonar-type sound that was just vibrating through the children. And afterwards, those children were so different. For lack of a better word, it's like they changed so much in just being more themselves, more healed, more open, more happy. It was so beautiful. And I have seen animals heal us because they connect us back to nature. And we have to be part of the whole. We're so disconnected the way we live. And we just look at them as like something in our planet, not that they're actually part of us. I mean, look at us as humans. We're not even accepting other humans still. So can you imagine we're even least accepting? But I know that anybody that goes out and works or just spends time out in the wilds always comes back a different person, because we're hearing our left and our right brain is being connected. We never have it connected. I think the scientific explanation that would probably make more sense to people is your left and your right brain, we're always thinking in one side. We're rarely in that other side. Okay, so some people might go ahead and slip into that other side, but then they're not connecting to that other. By connecting the right and left, that's what the animals are doing for us. They have done the same thing their whole life for hundreds and thousands of years. They're still the best at it. Our technology keeps making better and better this, like a cell phone. Why do we have to keep each year buying another cell phone? Don't we have the technology to have that already 10 years in advance phone now? Yeah, of course we do, but it's marketing. They're going to sell 1,000. It's all about money. Animals don't need a cell phone. They can telepathically still connect with everything. We're seeing studies being done now out of Zurich where they're seeing the telepathic messages being sent by animals. So this is all coming to light. Little by little, we're seeing that there are connection to what we've lost. One of the things that I wanted to go back to is when it comes to children. They have proven that children up to the age of 4 years old have an immediate connection with animals, where it's like anything else. If we don't practice certain things, if we are not trained or schooled to keep using an innate ability we have, we lose it. We never teach our children to communicate with an animal, but yet they're born with that. The Maasai is a perfect example. The sacred Maasai tribes in Africa, they live right with the African lions. What they do when their babies are born and the lions are having their babies, they actually let their babies play with the baby lions. They have absolutely no fear. These are we're talking newborn babies with newborn wild lion cubs are sitting there, and they're actually communicating with each other, laughing, playing, and it's so beautiful. It's so amazing, and it has been proven that you can sit any young child next to any young wild animal. Again, a wild animal meaning that hasn't been already domesticated by humans in their ways and their thoughts. But if you just I know we did it in Costa Rica. It was an accident. The Costa Rican lady who was my maid, she always brought her 4-year-old son to work with her all the time. And one time I had a little baby ocelot. And I had it in a little baby playpen because we were still making its habitat where it was going to spend its little growing up months until it was released. And so I told the little baby boy, I says, you take care of the little baby kitty while I go outside and check on the workers. And sure enough, he's in there, he's in the pen with it. And I said, you just got to be careful. And I kept looking back, and then at one point I couldn't see them. I had to go do 10 minutes later, I come back in. It was amazing. They were sitting there looking at each other's eyes, not saying a word or moving. But there was so much communication coming out. You could just feel it. I mean, if you could see it, it would be squiggly lines going back and forth. And I do know that there was a woman who actually had electrodes put on her head, and they seismographed her with being able to show, is communication occurring between her and this animal. So science once again stepped in to show there was something occurring. What it was, what name we can put on it. Maybe we have to think of a new word, because this is some new field we're now learning that we're also part of. But there's a vast amount of energy that surrounds us all the time. It's just how we use it. Animals constantly use it. I think that it's very important that, for instance, orphanages, that these children that don't have anything really, they don't have a family or anything like that, to start to bring them around wild animals that are also in the same predicament. They're either orphaned or they have to be in captivity. And I think that you're going to be able to learn a great deal from watching what occurs between the children and the animals. Because they're an open sponge, they're an open path. They haven't had certain things dogmated into their minds. Don't do this, don't do this. We tell our kids so many times, don't. Another thing I noticed in Costa Rica, they don't run after their children and say, oh, you're going to fall, or oh, there might be this, or oh, there might be that. They let their kids go. Okay, the kid's going to fall. It's not going to be a big deal. It picks itself right back up. I see these kids at the age of 3 and 4 being afraid of nothing. Where here in America, our kids are like, oh no, that's a no, that's a no. So many no's. That's such a negative word, even to hear that sound coming out. So when the children are with the animals, I think the animals take them somewhere else. Take them into another realm that is with us at all the times, but we don't enter it because our right and our left brains are not connecting. And when we're young, it's an instant connection. And then we just fill it with too many of the not so important things, because we're told in life that the most important thing is go out, go to school, get a job, and make a lot of money. That's not what life is about. And it's that big picture that the animals bring us back and show us. You're missing a huge part of the puzzle of why you're really here. And theologians, you name it, they're all trying to figure out, why are we really here? We do have a bigger purpose, and it's just beginning to be shown us. We are just now beginning to learn. We've made so many mistakes. We are seeing what our mistakes have done to the planet, to our animals, and we're now starting to make a change to that. And it's that change that's going to open up inside of us that which has been closed for thousands and thousands of years. That's why people love to hear stories of people that live in different countries, be it Tibet or this or that, these countries where the people seem so different than us, because they're more in tune with nature than we are. They're more calm. Things are not as important to them as we let them be seen. But when I look around here, for instance, at the Big Cat Center, these animals, they really, a lot of them, this one right here, this leopard, she would love to communicate with people. She would be a perfect candidate to help people in learning things, or just even if you can and say, well, I don't think I can do that, or I'm not really ready to believe in that yet. Okay, that's okay. You're entitled to your beliefs.
The cat will change it for you.
But just sit in front of them. Just, sit in front of them and have nothing else in your mind, and just see what comes to you. You may find just by walking away that you'll be able to handle a problem that you haven't been able to handle in a long time, or know how to deal with a difficult situation a little bit better than you did before. And you'll never be able to put a pinpoint on how was that able to happen. How was just sitting with a leopard able to cure that? But it did. And I think that's why it's really important for physically challenged, mentally challenged children to be around animals. Animals are so soothing and healing. We're finding that with our elderly. You bring, I know there was a couple of the shelters bring some of the cats and the dogs in, so the elderly, they love that. They immediately connect with them. I myself have an elderly mother that's in a center, and I know that when all the family members go visit her, yes, she loves seeing us, but there's such a difference that comes over her when we bring her dog. And when she sees that dog, she becomes a completely different person than when she's seeing us. And she's more at peace after that visit with her dog. It's like there's something, we may not even be able to remember what was told us, but in our subconscious, our subconscious is alive, and there's so much memory in there. And I think that that's exactly what the animals do. They get into our subconscious and they start to clear out. We hold a lot of negative memories in us, and we just bury them because we don't want to think about them, or something happened to us. They let us release it so that we're filling it with a different memory. We're filling it with a memory of who we really are, because we've forgotten who we are. We really don't know. Even our greatest minds challenge this thought all the time. Who are we really? Where did we really come from? No matter how much research is done out there, we still don't really know where we come from. We have very good educated guesses, but we're still so far away from it. And animals play a super important role. One thing I'd like to reiterate about wild animals and the ones that are captive, there is a huge difference between wildlife in the wild and animals that are captive. One of the greatest differences is their DNA. We have done studies via stem cells that show basically the inbreeding, the way the animal has changed. Animals will adapt to whatever their situation is. So when an animal is no longer hunting, when it no longer has to protect itself from all the things in the wild, and it lives a sedentary life in captivity, it changes. It becomes a different animal at that point. It's more a domestic animal than it is a wild animal. And not just because it's not allowed to be wild, but because it actually just forms actual different DNA stamps, so to speak, in what they're doing. And that's why when I was making the comments about children and wild animals, this again is also something not to be done. Just go out, hey, let's have our pictures taken with a wild animal, let's have our kid with wild. No, that's not the way it's done. There is a certain way under supervision that is authoritative in this area, and this is something that we're looking into the future to create a place where something like this can happen. But all of your animals that are, whether they're in zoos or in breeding centers or rescue centers, you always have to be careful with them. And when I make the suggestion of your children or you sitting with them, I don't mean, of course, in their cage. You don't have to be in with them. You be a safe distance away, and your children also. And just, they know. You don't have to be right on top of them to talk, to feel, to instill these things. But again, it is very important for people to know that another reason that breeding animals, keeping them in captivity, all of this, you're not saving a species at all. That is not what is going to save our endangered species. What is going to save our endangered species is to begin to stop the poaching, the extreme habitat loss that is happening, man's encroachment in so many different ways and so many different things that he's doing, whether he's polluting their water source or whether he's just encroaching in where they live. These are the two key factors that are going to be the only thing that save our endangered species. We don't want to be to a point where the only place that we see a wild animal is in a cage zoo, because it's not wild anymore. And again, I'm not saying that just because it's not leaping and jumping and bounding. It's simply because its DNA has been compromised. I see across the board, every zoo, every breeding center, they're just inbred. They're, as long as the animal looks like it's supposed to look like, they don't care. They don't see that the organs have changed. That I know that in breeding lions and tigers, when I was at Tippi Hendren's place, Shambhala, in California, she had a liger. I was shocked. I said, what is a liger? And she said it's a tiger and a lion mix, and it's very sad what happens. The bone growth, the organ growth. They have what is called giganticism disease, where they don't stop growing, and they don't last a very long time. Their lifespan is usually around 6 years, and it's a painful death because it's feeling arthritic internally, not somewhere where we can put a little massage cream on it and feel better. It's internal organs battling for space because they're not growing properly. So man needs to not play God and not think that he's going to create different various species. And we as people, we need to stop wanting to see that. Our voices are what's going to make breeding centers, fur centers, all of these people stop. When a breeding center says to me, we're doing this so that we can keep this endangered species going, it's a lie. You want to keep an endangered species going, use the funding to buy up a piece of rainforest where this animal comes from and protect it. That would be a way better way to spend your money. And then you're giving the home to the wild species, and that wild species stays strong. Their DNA is a strong match. They are subsequently working, doing what they need to be doing.
Can you talk a little bit about remote viewing or remote connections to animals? I'm assuming that this can be done over huge distances, and it's not something where you actually have to be next to an animal to communicate with them.
No, in fact, there are people that have the ability to communicate, especially with an animal they've already communicated with. I had rescued one time a wolf cub, and when I was away from this wolf cub, and I mean I was really far away, we're talking I was in a completely different country, I was able to receive a message from this animal, and it was so strong, and sure enough, when I called to see how he was doing, there had been something that had gone terribly wrong. So this is how you know, okay, it's like a mother's premonition when she's away from her kids, and she's just like, wait a minute, I feel something, or I don't feel my child, and I can always feel my child. This same premonition, woman's intuition, or just our own instinct. We do have instinct. This all can be telepathically felt. We feel it continents away, and we can actually send a message. If you have clear intent and purpose, they reach it. They grasp out. They're always on a telepathic way of communicating. Unlike us, where we have to pick up a telephone or have to be right next to us, they're feeling it. But you can feel it, because every single mother who's hearing this knows that, yes, you've had this ability. If your child's at school, at play, or at somewhere else, and you just feel this, you get this sense, and something has happened, you know that. That's that same feeling. And that's a feeling that you can actually cultivate, to have that constantly. So no matter where you are, you can connect up with whatever it is that you want to connect with.
I know sometimes people have this same connection with their pets, where they know when their pet has passed. They know when there's been an accident or something, and they don't know why they know it.
Exactly. And it's this not knowing how we do this that's the big question mark that science is now trying to figure out. But in the meantime, some things sometimes aren't meant to be explained. We just have it. And rather than try to how, just go with it. Just go with it and see where it leads you, because maybe it will lead you to the answer that you're looking for, as it has to me. He did with the poachers is he hired the poachers to be guards. He said, okay, I know you guys got to feed your families, and by killing the animals, you're making a certain amount of money off of them. But become our guards. Start hunting, showing your poachers, you're going to be the best ones to know how to find other poachers. And they, pay them. And so you started to see a whole trend of people that used to kill animals now protecting them. And they were the best at it because they knew exactly how to do it, because they used to be the bad boys. So it worked out really well. And in Costa Rica, it would be really, I think, a center that would be open where volunteers could come down. Okay, you have the volunteers where the young people are experiencing firsthand what it's like to work with the animals that, okay, have to be captive. But also we have animals ready for release. And in these centers, zoology students, biology students, veterinarian students could come down. I have a concept of putting in the trees a platform, completely enclosing it with camouflage, doing night vision goggles, so that you're able to actually see the animal hunt, which you will be able to see because the animals are fed at night. They're not fed during the day. In our center, what we would do is feed them at nighttime to make them know this is what you're going to be doing. You're normally going to be hunting at night. And it's just they feel better. So there's many different things that could be done to create a center where also you're learning from other centers throughout the world, to create a communication where you're learning, okay, what are we doing in this center? What are we doing in this center? People are getting help. Does this animal need to be moved maybe to this center? Maybe that would be better. Sometimes centers are really good when they just pick one animal to say, okay, this is what we're going to be providing and doing, but really indulge in just that one animal. And in South America, a jaguar reserve is really necessary because jaguars are still hunted every single day and night. And the government branches that so-called protect the animals, they're too afraid. Believe it or not, those guys at nighttime, they never go out. And the hunters know it. So the hunters go out and hunt at night. So you have a catch-22. I like always walk in and see the guards in the office. What are you doing in the office? Why aren't you out there? They're afraid. They're really afraid of the animals that they're supposed to be protecting, which isn't good, but that's the way it is down there. And also a stem cell collection bank. We need a bank set up where it is stored for future purposes, the stem cells of wild species that have a very strong and good DNA.
And this can be done without killing the animals.
Yeah, you don't kill the animal. This is when the animal has to be sedated for some other reason. You take a sample of its stem cells. That's it. It takes exactly 2 minutes. All you're doing is you're just pulling out some of its blood, and you're collecting the stem cell activity, and that's it. Um, and even when you do have a mother stem cell, what we do is we never use that mother. That mother's always stored. We take her out, we feed her, and she simultaneously just brings new babies. She creates new babies. It's the babies that we use to do the curing and the healing. The mother is then put back to sleep. She's under, and she'll sleep for years. So she's always able to be used. This is the beauty about the mother stem cell. But there's many different facets, even the medicinal herbs that are used for all the formulas for the animals. I know that what we were doing is we just started growing all the medicinal plants so that we had our own pharmacopoeia right there. So whenever there was an animal that was sick, we would just grind up and make whatever we needed, the formulation for the animal to get well. We cured every single animal. We never had a veterinarian come to us. We were using our pharmacopoeia of things. So you can make it so it's very self-sufficient, and it opens up a learning school where children or kids are actually getting credits for coming down there because they're having a hands-on experience in whatever it is that they're looking to learn about. And it would be really amazing because Costa Rica really could use this at this time. And it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to working on. And we already have an area already set up that would be almost just kind of walk in and start doing it. So there wouldn't be like the startup costs and so forth. So this is another thing that would be really exciting to look forward to creating something like this.
And save them in the wild where they belong.
Yeah, and that way the chances of them being released are a lot easier too, because then you can tell some candidates, some animals really don't want to go. I know that my mountain lion, when I was working with her in Costa Rica, and when it was time to set her free and I set her free, she came home. And we took her a long way away and she came home. We were like, what are you doing home? And so her habitat door was open. So she went into her habitat and she went to sleep. She woke up and then she was gone again. So she started playing, oh, I just want to go play, but I want to come back sometimes. So like one day a week she would come back and she wouldn't come back to eat. It wasn't that she was hungry. I would even look at her when she would defecate her stool, and she had the fur and the feathers in it. I knew she was hunting. You could tell from that, but she just kind of wasn't ready to completely detach from us. We did that with wild turkeys, and we had to disassemble their entire cage because they kept coming and just landing on the cage. And we were like, no, go, go. And they just said, well, we just kind of like both. So you do have animals like that, and then you have animals that as soon as you set them free, they run so fast they never want to see you again. So
which is what I tell people about these animals in captivity. So many people tell me, oh, my animal loves being in captivity because it gets food every day and I take care of it every day, and it wouldn't want to live in the wild. It's like, you open that door and see. Yeah, yeah. You'll never see that animal again. They want to go out, they want to explore, but of course they get scared. One of the hardest things, believe it or not, was not teaching it to hunt with my puna. Nothing was hard to teach it except for how to fight another female. That was awful. There's no way you could teach them. She just had to learn. There was a male coming around when she came into heat, and there was also a female that wanted that male. And you just knew, okay, get the medical kit ready because she's going to come back battered and bruised. She doesn't know how to fight. And that's the scary part. But, you know, that's all part of what it is. That's why they love to go run and smell everything and, wow, look at this, and chase everything. But then there comes a part where animals, just like we do, they get scared. And then they'll just come running home. But you have to start saying, okay, you can't keep coming back here. You have to just keep going. You know, they're just like little kids, what they do. But they're very intelligent, too. They get things. They get things very quickly about what they have to do. And if they're not a pack animal and they're not accepted into a pack, which is very easy in releasing an animal, then they just have to learn different things. And they do learn. They learn very quickly. I really think that they get all their messages right from the ground. They ground themselves. They're always grounded. They're always receiving messages that we can only dream of. You mentioned earlier that there is training courses that people can take from you to learn about connecting with animals. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and how somebody would contact you?
I do workshops. I also do private classes. I can be contacted. My telephone number is 727-688-8795. And also my email address is wildjuvias@gmail.com. Half the word is in English and half of it is in Spanish. It means rain. Juvias means rain, like it's raining. I will spell it. It's WILDLLUVIAS@gmail.com. I will probably be giving an animal communication workshop here at the Big Cat Rescue Center. We will have information leading up to that, so you can check in here. And also I do also give courses on natural holistic healing medicines. And I also have a line of extraordinary herbal remedies. If anyone is interested in my remedies, please contact me. I'd be more than happy to sit down with veterinarians and lay people alike to help them with their animals by giving them natural medicines.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's always so great to be here.
Well, obviously the cats have found you to be very soothing because
they're all going to sleep as soon as they hear me talk.
Asleep in there.
That's good. I could sing a rockabye baby.
You know what we didn't talk about, but and I can splice this back into the middle someplace. I'm sure you're aware of how purring helps them heal themselves, and they found that to help people as well. Could you talk more about that?
Purring, again, is another sound vibration. For instance, if you're next to a big lion, it actually is moving your body. I used to lay on top of my puma at times when it would get very rainy and we had to bring her into the cabin, and there was a hurricane. Long story, but we had to bring her into the cabin one time. And her purring was so loud it would actually move my body. That's a vibrational frequency. That is why it heals. It makes us feel so much better. It's an instant calming. It immediately hits all of our sensory perceptives of our nervous system and just calms us. And it's how they soothe their little babies, by purring to them. Purring is an amazing thing. And it's a sound that you make when you're happy, when you're content. It's a sound that reminds you of babiness. So whenever we want to escape from reality and go back to the womb, a purr brings us back there. And that's why it's another thing that's very important in sound therapy. Just like they say, music soothes the savage beast. They have found by playing certain music to certain very agitated captive animals, it does help them quiet. That's why things like circuses are such a joke. With all the lights flashing and all the noise and the whips cracking and everything, the animals just want to hurry up and get it over with. It's terrifying, and it's not what they're used to. They're used to the noises that you hear when you're in the jungle, the quiet, the peacefulness. A twig snapping is alerting them that they've got to be on guard. So can you imagine when they're in captivity and they hear the things that we put out on them? They just want to run away. That's why they mostly stay hidden or want to sleep. And only at nighttime do they come out. It's because at least at nighttime it's a little less. Lights, for instance. Lights are also very detrimental. At nighttime, this entire planet should be dark. It's very, very important. And we're not. We have lights all over. But especially if anyone does have animals, it's a really good idea always to not keep them around artificial lighting at nighttime. It's very important for them to, it actually plays a huge role on the peripheral vision that they have, the ability to see when they're hunting. And even though you say, well, they're captive and they're not going to use that vision anymore, it's detrimental to their eyesight, just like it is for humans. We need to start more just using natural light, and at nighttime, leave it dark. Get yourself night vision goggles, like I said. It's the answer.
Our cats live about twice as long as they do in most zoos and most captive situations.
It's because you have such a great natural environment here. There's very low noise, and
No light.
No light. And that really plays on them. The night brings a healing to animals. It brings something, again, something we don't understand, something that we're looking into. And it's this transition from day to night that they accept and they feel, just like we go to sleep during our night. And we get our healing during that sleep. Even though they're active during their night, a lot of the animals, they're receiving something from the night. And that, again, is a magical mystery. Another thing that science is trying to find the answers to.
Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to include? Anything people should know about you, or something that might surprise them about you?
Oh, we wouldn't want to go there. I just know that I've always followed my instincts, and wherever spirit leads me, I go. Meaning, I don't plan where my next thing is going to be, what I'm going to do. Somehow or another, even without me looking, somebody that needs me finds me. And I have found out that even if it looks like the simplest thing, always go. You never know what else comes from it. But you'll read an awful lot in my book about myself. I'm not a great book writer, but I have an incredible story. And I remember when I started to write it, from the moment I started to type on my computer, from beginning to end, I never stopped, and I never said, I've run out of an idea what to write about.
And what was the name of the book again, and where can
Thy
they find
Kingdom
it?
Come, and it's on Amazon.com, and proceeds go to help the Jaguars in Costa Rica project. And it's a story where I had to tell a lot of things. It's a very personal story. And in order to, probably the hardest thing was to get people to understand how I changed from being with them. So I think anybody that wants to divulge more into learning about animals, it's really a good story to read, because I didn't leave anything out, from the tears to the frustrations to the everything that happened. It was an amazing cycle of my life, and I knew from a little girl that I wanted to work with animals. I never had another change. I remember growing up on a farm, and I would tell my dad, Henrietta, the chicken said something to me, or Betsy, the cow, said something, and he would just pat me on my head and say, uh-huh, okay, Julie. Like, it's really hard to tell somebody you're feeling or hearing something that doesn't believe in you. But you know what? It's not important that anybody else does. It's just for you. Sometimes there's a message that is just for you, and it's not even meant to be shared. And there are a few times in my book that I don't share a message that was given to me because it was a very personal message. We're missing out on a big link, the missing link between man and animals. Once that link is bridged, it's not just linking us to the animals, it's linking us to our life and our purpose here. And it's really amazing. It's mind-blowing.
Thank you for joining us for Cat Chat number 37. You can always find us on thecatchatshow.com or bigcatrescue.org. Thank you. See you again next week.